Hello, listeners. Hi, my name is Madhavi, and I'm so happy to have you on UppTalk. You have come to the right place if you want to learn about IT and do really cool things with your hands. We are not just another IT company when I say UppTalk. Think of us as your learning partner dedicated to helping you reach your full potential. We have top notch hands on courses to help you build your business, whether you're new to technology or want to move up in your current job. Let's look around this as our first step towards learning.
Now, if you go to your tenant setup in the security, basically you'll be seeing you need to configure your redirection URLs actually. Tenant setup. Tenant setup security. Go to the tenant setup security. You can go to the SAM setup. You have your security email settings. When you're actually doing a kind of brand new security system, the security email setting will actually allow you to send a kind of email for you. If you're setting a kind of work email as a kind of primary and home email as secondary, when you check this checkbox, just check that checkbox. The first one is there, send to work email or else home email, just select that one. Whatever the transactions that will be happening and you are a kind of notifier, you want it to be notified, those notifications will be coming for your work email. Let's say if someone, let's say you're getting hired, actually you're getting hired and some communication has to be shared to you, the tenant first, when you're getting onboarded, HR department will be sharing your kind of onboarding links and access to set up your Workday account. Since they'll be sending you kind of onboarding links and all those should be coming to you by kind of general process that will trigger an email to your primary email address. And before onboarding, you will not have a kind of worker email. No, you'll be selecting work email as home email or send to home email, else work email. These two options you can play around actually. When you select this option by default, when HR department assigns again an onboarding task for you, you'll be getting an email actually. You'll be getting an email with all the list of the activities. How you'll be getting that email is based on this option. Actually, this will enable you to send emails to user actually. This checkbox email security setting checkbox will allow you to send any kind of notifications to Yusuf from this. If you have set your work email as a primary, you'll be getting your notification to work email. The second option is bypass login redirect for new accounts. Actually, when you're of new user, when you are a new user and you are actually having a kind of new account, when you're trying to access that, bypass login redirect for new accounts in the sense it will be bypassing your login action. It will be bypassing because when your security team or when your Okta team gets you access, they'll be giving a kind of access to your email. Access to your email or your employee ID. The moment you actually input your email or your employee ID, that will bypass your login screen. Actually, that will bypass your login screen and will be allowing you to get into the screen, actually the second option that we were talking about, bypass login related for new accounts. Whenever your Octal account gets created to those new accounts, your login with the username and password will get bypassed because you have been provided with your Okta access, and the moment you actually clicks on, there will be a kind of new icon for you on your desktop. Actually, when your security a team gets you a kind of Okta access for your tenant access, instead of getting your username and password, they'll share a kind of the Workday icon, which would be automatically authenticate you and get your login by passing your username and password credentials. Actually, you don't need to input your username and password. The moment you actually access that icon which is associated with your Okta access, when you click on that, it will be bypassing your login credentials and getting you into the tenant. If you wanted to have that kind of performance to be happening, you need to check this checkbox. If you don't check this checkbox, even if Okta team provides your Okta access, that will still pop up for username and password. When you select this option, it will bypass your login screen with Okta redirection URL. There will be a kind of reduction URL in the bottom. I'll show you. But when you check this checkbox, the performance will happen. And when you don't check this checkbox, even if you have Okta access, that will still allow you to input your user credentials. Actually, then email, text, and temporary password for new accounts whenever your new account is getting created. If you select this option, automatically a new password will be temporary password will be sent to you to your email. For example, let's say you got hired for one of the Workday developer position and for performing any kind of onboarding task. They have given you access to the tenant action. There are two options. One is we can actually reset the password without resetting the password. I have work data to set a kind of temporary password for you. When you check this checkbox, email temporary password for new accounts. When you check this checkbox, automatically, when your new profile is created for any employee, an email will be sent to them with a temporary password, whatever the configuration that you're making at this point. That applies across the tenant level. That is not specific to one employee or two employees. Any employee who gets hired and new account gets needed for that employee, a temporary password will be sent to that employee. How it will be sent is based on the option that you have selected or was sent to home email or work email you have selected. On the top to that option, a temporary password will be sent. One question, if the employee is terminated, it's still that. Can you try to log in? Do we restrict or maybe forgot password, or people will try generally? Whenever employee gets terminated, let's say if you're getting terminated 10th of, or your termination will happen sometime 4 o'clock in the afternoon actually. The default process that is set in Workday when employee gets terminated, end of the day, 11:59 p.m. of that day, you will be inactivated from the system. You're terminated in a day, but if your HR or if you Workday team members just takes that as a kind of regular termination, your termination will actually make your account inactivation. End of the day, actually, still you'll be able to access till that 11:59 p.m. You will be able to access. The moment 12 a.m. comes, your account will get inactivated, and you will not be able to access. That's the default behavior of termination. Whenever employee is getting terminated, end of the day, account will get inactivated. But there are certain cases, there are some kind of involuntary terminations would have happened, some kind of of scenarios, the moment employee gets terminated, immediately your HR will do forceful inactivation of the account. HR will do, or Workday team member will do, they will be going to the security profile of that person. They will disable that account. But if you don't do, let automatically end up the day 11:59 p.m. of the day, your account will get deactivated. That's the option enable forgot password. When you select this one, it will give you option to, if you have forgotten the password, it will allow you to select the password through multiple options actually. One is authenticating you to your email or your phone number or anything, or they will be sending a kind of link. When you access that link, that will be pointing you to reset the password. The other option is enable change password link. When you click on that question tag, you will see complete the description of that. What kind of scenario? You can see here, set up the display link to change the password link. When you select this option, these links will be available for you. When you select the checkbox, this link, you will be to configure password reset kind of option. If you don't check this checkbox, you'll not see this option on your login screen. Actually, you'll not see password reset option. But when you select the checkbox, you'll be seeing this option actually. Got it? It's going on. And then enable email notification on account lockout. If you want it to be notified when your account gets locked, if you have tried to attempt multiple passwords login, or if you attempted multiple invalid passwords, your account will get locked out. When you want it to be, your account is getting locked, if you want it to be notified. With that activity, you'll be immediately checking this checkbox. At that, you'll be getting a notification. Your account has got locked. And then custom password reset error message. System password reset error message. If there is any kind of any issue at tenant level where the security screen is not working to allow you to reset your password, there will be a kind of default message that Workday provides. Whatever you are seeing, the system was unable to reset your password. There is a system default message. But if you wanted to give a kind of your own message for which reason you're not able to reset your password, either it can be data center issue, either it can be your tenant issue, or it can be your network issue. Anything can be if you wanted to mention you're not able to reset your password following, or the reasons following reasons could be one of the reason could be that is not allowing you to reset your password. You can actually give a kind of custom message and add your reasons for that one, that this custom message will be populated for an employee for which they are not able to reset their password. Only the thing is you'll have when you are resetting the password, you'll be getting again default message that is offered by Workday. If you don't want to have that message, if you want to have your own customized message, you can actually add your customized message in that text box actually. Enable web authentication is nothing. That's security side. If you click on that question tag, you'll be seeing more about. Generally, when you're trying to access your team through Okta, or when you're logging into tenant through Google Chrome, And then when you're trying to again log into your tenant with a duplicate browser with the same username and password, what it will do is when you are actually selecting this option, enable web authentication, it will automatically authenticate you in the next browser because you are already connected to the system in one of the browser actually, and when you're actually duplicating that browser and trying to get into the tenant, it will not ask you to enter a username and password for that one because it will be authenticating you with the next with other login that you are already into the Workday tenant. It will be authenticating you with that login and will bypass that login screen for you and get into the tenant. In order to have that option working for you, you need to select this enable web authentication option. When you select this option, you run one browser, your performance and activity, and you want to keep and that browser open and you want to have your Workday open in another browser. When you actually open your Workday in another browser, generally, if you go for this thing in cognitive window, it will ask you to enter username and password. But when you select this option, when you actually access that in a browser, it will not ask you for any kind of authentication. It will automatically enable you the authentication that you have done in the primary screen. Actually, it won't ask you to input your password or your employee or password anything. And can be, it will not have, it will enable to authenticate the web browser actually. Single sign-on. Generally, what I see in this thing, we will not be selecting this one. Actually, web authentication we will not be selecting because we should not have this authenticated through web browser. Through your login, it should be authenticated. We will not be selecting this option, which will not authenticate you automatically when you access Workday in your next duplicate browser. It should not authenticate you. It should not allow you to get it. You will not be checking this checkbox. Now coming to the single sign-on. Single sign-on also, you will not be doing anything. Default delegated authentication, which means that your authentication will be delegated. Other person, even this is not a selective option, you'll keep that as blank. And then screen whatever you're seeing, redirection all, that is what you're going to configure your Samuel all there. Next screen you're seeing redirection all. You can click on plus button there. Here you will be selecting your this thing actually single URL. Select single URL. Now how you'll be configuring your redaction URL is just copy that. Home at 12, what you can do is remove that. After your admin DP2 remove from DHTML. After admin, your tenant name has to be there. Your tenant name has to be there. Your tenant name has to be there. That it will authenticate through tenant. After a tenant name, you can actually remove rest of things that backspace D is there. From there, you can actually remove your reduction URL, the ready rate, you can actually add it. Can you actually go to the last character of this admin DPT? Is there no? What you can do is login hyphen, login hyphen, SAMFX actually. SAMLFLX. What this will do is this will allow you to access your lawlated Here, that will allow you to log in through a reduction here. What would be your logout to reduction URL is? Let's say your organization name is admin underscore D2. You can actually select apps admin opticom, your tenant name, optum, admin num. If admin is your tenant name, admin octacom. And similarly, octa, the same timeout URL also would be the same. The logout URL also would be the same. That's done. If you wanted to have this to be applied for your mobile applications, you can actually configure something related to your mobile. You can actually go with your tenant URL when you are trying to access your Workday through mobile also. It should allow you to access Workday through single sign-on. You'll be mobile login also. You'll be giving at the same launch that will be authenticating your credentials actually, even when you access Workday through mobile app. That should allow you to log in. Next thing is mobile browser login. Reddit, all. That also should be the same. Actually, that also. Whatever you added in the mobile app login, read it all. That should be the same for your browser. Now, once you have this set, you will be restricting this to each environment. When you are doing this for a setup, there is a you're doing this for sandbox, or you're doing for production, or you're doing for implementation. Based on that, you'll be setting this up. Actually got it. This you'll be configuring. This you'll be configuring for each of your tenant actually. You're looking for your sandbox. You're looking for your production. You're looking for your implementation. Whichever, you can do the same process for your tenants actually. The single URL that you have selected, that will be allowing you to get into the SAML page actually. Now you can click on. You can click on if that is actually bypassing it to get into the tenant. What you can do is you can edit and fix that one. I don't know. Enable authentication. These are alerts actually. You can ignore alerts. Only errors if you remove it. Alerts are not considerable actually. You can click on. Now you can go to the SAM setup once. What you have done. Calm down that. Now you can see here your SAML is set up for your input tenant, ideally in real time. When you now access, if you would have done this for your impl tenant or your sandbox tenant, you should be seeing some kind of login screen bypassed with the SAML actually. Your login screen will be bypassed. It will be authenticating through your single sign on with username and password. In that way, you will be doing for all your tenants actually. You have 4 tenants. One is for sandbox, one is for implementation, one is for other thing. You'll be using multiple tenants for your cell setup. Actually, that's how your SAML setup will be. Your provider will provide you some kind of IDs which you can configure. If something gets expressed, it will be your Workday screen. We'll stay for around 30 minutes or 20 minutes on your screen. After 20 minutes, it will get signed off. Actually, it will get disconnected, default behavior actually. But you should be able to enhance that configuration is what in one of the webinars I have seen. But you should be able to have your SAML, whatever the ID that your vendor is providing. Page on the ID you can set up there and each and every tenant that you have accessed will be bypassed and will allow you to get into the screen with Okta authentication. This you'll bring for all your tenants. That's the same. All the things. What multi-factor authentication? The other thing that you can see factor 9 private key pair. Do you see that after? This thing, your sample setup, and see here, this one. X-Pfizer, 9 private key parents. Again, this you'll be creating actually within. Birthday, you'll create a key pay and I'd rather keep it to them. Maybe create this one. You have a task called create XYZ and private key option you have. There you will create and you will take that key and add it to your tenant. Whatever you are seeing blank now. You are seeing anything. I admit DP to your seeing now. If you go to edit XYZ and private key, you should be seeing this one actually. We generally call that as a kind of encryption process. Actually, you can be confident as part of your encryption. All these things done before in implementation phase only. All these setups are no. Your tenant setup will be done first during the implementation. We are implementing the before you go first. Co-configuration. All the security systems should be enabled next, not the first step. Basically, if first we are implementing a brand and new Workday system for your customer, all the security. A security business process, the first step of your implementation, you'll be configuring that. As a first step, once you have your security defined and based on that, you'll be getting to the security system and follow whatever we were discussing actually. What kind of issues we may see later again in the phase. Once we set it up done. Generally, do we get any kind of issues once the setup is done also? Do we do any changes will happen? Generally, when you actually configure tenant level setups of implementation partner, they'll have some kind of testing process. When your implementation partner is configuring your tenant setup, they'll have your implementation support team to actually validate and provide if any kind of additional access is required. For that, they'll be providing that access for the additional user, or you can actually provide when you're doing a kind of branding set of models in the term, you will be your implementation partner will have a checklist actually for each of the activities that they'll perform either. It can be a business process, it can be a sales process, it can be a sales. Security, all the tenant level settings, not just edit tenant security. They'll have edit tenant setup HCM, edit tenant setup notifications, edit tenant setup payroll, edit tenant setup benefits. You'll have a lot of tenant setups for each of the module. Actually, your implementation partner will actually prepare a list of all the activities that you'll be performing and edit tenant setup access. They're all the tenant level configurations you'll be doing first, and then once you do tenant level configuration, that will allow you to perform some kind of code configurations. Let's say, for example, in Edit Tenant Setup Workday HCM, there is a setup that will allow you to generate employee IDs and employee email section. Employee ID, that when employee gets hired in the system, automatically employee will get generated, where you will give the control for that activity. You'll be giving a tenant level. Edit tenant level HCM, you'll be giving the control. If you won't give that, employee will not be sequenced actually. Employee will not be sequenced. Since you have sequenced this through a sequence generator, you have hired your employee will get generated, and then the other person who gets hired after you. The same sequence of employee will be generated for that employee, as because you have configured your tenant level configuration in such a way that will allow you to that the authentication part, actually basically your tenant level settings, or the tenant level settings should be configured before you configure a core security process. And generally, implementation partner will have all the checklist, since they'll be doing for all the customers for which business process some kind of checklist should be followed, for which recruiting business process checklist should be followed. For all the other things, operations things, what all the checklist should be considered, your implementation partner will be making a list and will be sharing to your customer accident. A customer will be reviewing this, and since it's their own requirement, they can add a few things and remove a few things. That's how it happens. They are the one who is going to approve the client one. When you're doing this in discovery session, you'll have all these items finalized. There will be a kind of, that's called discovery session, how long it will happen in general. In timeline, let's say based on small company size, it was part of a very heavy international implementation actually. I was implemented for one of the customer where they were actually expanding their workday for international locations, that and Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, China. For all these countries, they were actually expanding their workday. When we started this implementation, we had a kind of 6 months of discovery sessions, actually 6 months of discovery sessions. What are the challenges that we have? China is moving from custom applications to Workday. What are the integrations are challenging there? Whether Workday will support those integrations. China people will need Chinese language to be populated on Workday. Whether a Workday supports that, or do we need to use any kind of translate functions? All these kind of requirements be discussing the challenges, the possible things. If something is not possible, get Workday involved and see what the recommendation would be, whether they support this thing or not. You'll be discussing your discovery session. That went for 6 months actually. 6 months was because that was a huge implementation for multiple countries. 6 months was discovery sessions. For a complete 6 months, we were actually discussing with the customer on the requirements actually, because China implementation was complicated actually, because they won't customize the requirements. We were actually explaining the possibilities of Workday, how Workday can actually handle for China. All those things we were actually discussing in discovery sessions. And once we got a clarity on the go forward path, then taking this towards a design. And then once the design is approved, implement this one. And once the implement is completed, do a kind of testing, entry and testing, post testing, and do a kind of final development of production. One question in the discussion: what is the day to day work? In your case, also day to day work. You are doing analysis and providing that information. Who is going to monitor how we need to proceed, the status, and everything? Somebody will monitor closely, or the implementers. Who is going to monitor? That's part of the implementers. Monitor, in the sense I'm part of implementation team. My responsibility is to give a kind of clarity for the implementation. And what would be the next step actually? If we prepare a kind of all the list of the activities, what are all the list of the activities that are closed? We'll start designing part. What are the rest of the attributes that are open? We'll start working on them actually. How do you monitor? In the sense of basically progress, just generally for each of the issues that we have identified, each of the kind of challenges or each of the issues that we have identified as part of discovery or as part of design or as part of implementation or as part of testing, as part of production support, as part of post-production support. There will be a kind of the customer was actually using Zerat. They were using Zerat as a kind of tracking tool where we used to post all the issues in the Zerat and assign to the respective person. Whatever the issue related to that person used to take care of the issues. Oh, Mar, that long, how long it went? I take more than the Discord to live. Implementation took around 2 years of time actually because it was complete. Implementation, core configuration, because all the modules were there, we were actually going phase by phase. Customer wanted to have core HR compensation performance in one phase. Payroll benefits learning in one phase and the other modules in one phase, not everything in one go. But for China, Australia, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, they wanted to have these modules to go first and then they wanted to have EA, United Emirates. We have down the continent. For those kind of companies, they wanted to have few modules to go in one go. We have again, they were actually explaining their workday to all the locations that they have in all the Pacific, Asia Pacific region and AI, wherever they are in their offices, they have planned to actually go. Since they were having too many locations and modules, also they were using every module. Other than finance, they were using all the modules for each country. Getting their legacy data, map with Workday, loading the data, and show them how this will be, showing everything we were performing in a scheduled manner. It took around 2 years of time, close to 2 years of time, completing this process actually. One is good to know that it's a lengthy process, not just that. And even though even implementation is lengthy, actually because it's something that we need to have tested in multiple environments. And that too, whatever the core configuration that Workday is offering. And whatever your customer requirement that you're making, you need to have those to be working. And when your end user is testing that one, you need to have a kind of test result passed, actually. In that way, you'll be tracking and you'll be ensuring that each of the configurations is working fine or not. That would be a kind of security setup that you'll be making. And the other option that you can see, You're clear on the bypassing the CML link setup. Understood? I can this. Basically, you'll be getting your login redirect URL. You'll be getting the login redirect URL and timeout redirect URL from your vendor. Actually, the vendor will be needing that, and when you are setting that up, someone from the vendor team will be giving you a login directory. Got it. Generally, if you are part of the implementation team, you will get all the information. You will ask all the information. Each department will be involved. Let's say your implement core HR payroll benefits you are doing. For each of the team, you'll have a kind of discussion that will allow you to perform a kind of co-configuration in that particular area. Each module you'll be making for learning what are the configurations that Workday is offering. You'll make a checklist and type of the setup that you'll be making. Business process that you'll be making. You'll be making kind of all the list of the activities, and once each of the activities completed, you'll be getting them out of your list actually. I got it. But if you wanted to do a kind of change control for any of the things, you'll be again following the process of change control by raising a ticket with gender score 0. You'll be following that and you'll be getting that activity tracked and completed. That's in the SAML once you are aware, and then you have something called, is there anything called multifaceted? Authentication is something. Multi-mobile authentication is. Multi-factor authentication settings. Here, authenticator app one time. One time password SMS. This you don't have any grid above, then there should be. That should allow you to vary and multifaceted multi-factor authentication. Or I didn't have anything last time. You have when you go for SAML setup. Just go down, go little up. I think you came completely down. Go for when you have tested that benefits one. We have tested when you have added that same URL. Just go to the, here they are there now. You have a SAML setup, import ID and ID provider. You have some checkboxes actually. Enable SAML authentication. Enable multi-factor authentication. You have an option actually. You go to little top. Here you're seeing. Come down, come down, come down. You can see it. You can see ORG 2.0 settings. And you can see SAML setup actually is there. Here you'll have an option. Enable SAM authentication in this checkbox that you have. You should be checking that one. That is enabled. But when you have enable SAM authentication as yes, you should be seeing all the kind of all the sample setup checkboxes that you should have seen, and there will be a kind of grid actually who is providing your SAM, whether it is Okta, whether it is Google or anything, who is providing your Okta setup. You will be adding, and those details there got it, maybe the same process what we discussed. On the X5 zero private key, that should be the same process. You'll be setting this up, create X50 in private keypad, and you'll be calling that here actually once you create that. You'll be calling that here. That's on the sample setup. If you come down little, you'll be in this end. Grid is not allowed, but you should be seeing a grid also. If you're using a kind of Google email, Google SSO will be configured. If you're seeing any kind of Outlook, there is a Microsoft Outlook or a kind of a URL that you'll be getting from vendor. Actually, that will be setting up as an identity provider for SAML. All these things will be defaulted from there. You don't need to create anything. All these things will be defaulted from your vendor. Vendor will be sharing you all the ID of the Okta, all those things. They'll be sharing you and using those credentials. You'll try to connect for SAML as your Okta. One question now in the admin guide, the Workday Authentication Security Admin Guide. Does they have this kind of information in detail or they won't just have? I have a guide. I didn't go through that. I'll open now. You'll not have a step-by-step process for them. They'll give you need to select this one, you need to go for this one, but there should be a kind of business specific information. Why we need to go here? If someone is not using this, why it is not required for them? All this information will come with your configuration experience, actually, with experience only. With you know your tenant setup configuration experience, you'll be getting that. Got. And the rest of the things should be simple kind of checkboxes if you are intended to have those things. Those things based on your organization requirement, you will be checking those things. Just a kind of feature availability for you to use them. Most of the users will just go for mobile authentication, but will not go for any other authentication actually. That's the tenant level security settings, which you need to consider for your implementation. That's sufficient. I think I can. That's good enough. When you configure that SAML, ideally that should allow you to bypass your login screen and get into the Workday if that is a valid authentication. If it is not a valid, you will be seeing an error. SAML authentication has got failed, kind of error will be there and you will not be able to get into the screen actually. That should be on the SAML again. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@therightuptalk.com.